Okay, so let me take you back to 1990. And I want you to imagine I'm in undergrad, I'm a senior in college. Just basically, it shouldn't be too hard to imagine. Just imagine me now, what you see right now, but with wearing a hat that's made of hair. That's basically what I look like. Now, I had made the decision, me and some friends, we made the decision that we were going to go skydiving. And it was the night before, and we're at a party. So, I'm being careful not to drink anything. You don't want to be hungover right before you're going to go skydiving, right? But in the meantime, I'm really nervous about this. I have this thing that I committed to coming up the next day. And there's this question, are you going to do it? Or are you not going to do it? So I start basically talking trash. Just telling everyone how confident and cool I am. And if, of course, I'm going to do it. And, some people are arguing with me. You're going to wuss out and all of this. And I just start really, just talking it up. I mean, to the point where I've told this story before, but I'm talking to the point where I was afraid not to go. I was more afraid not to jump out of the airplane the next day than I was to die. I had put that much behind it. I mean, my whole ego was riding on it. And it was purposely done, right? This was a way for me to kind of close the door. This was a way for me to ensure that I didn't back out of it. Because I was talking so much trash. How could I show my face otherwise? Now, what I'm explaining here is an example of arrogance. The word arrogance comes from a Latin term meaning to claim. Arrogance and confidence don't have really that much to do with each other in a way, but in a way they do. Because arrogance is about claiming. It's not about confidence. It's not about trust in self. That's the definition of confidence. Complete trust. When we look at the origin of confidence, that's where it comes from. It's a word that means complete trust. And arrogance is a word that comes from the word to claim. So it's about being haughty. It's about being superior. And it's more about speaking than it is necessarily about being. Now, having this data, it might be like, of course, the person who can do will never speak, and the person who can not do will always speak a lot. And that is what you see. You see a lot of trash talkers who can't do at all. I remember when I used to play basketball in the park, the guys talking the most were the worst players. It was confounding. I didn't understand it at all. Like, why are you speaking so much? You stink. On the other hand, let's go back to 1969. 1969, the New York Jets are in the Super Bowl, and they are outmanned. They are playing an all-time great team, the Baltimore Colts. And they have a brash young quarterback, the Jets. His name is Joe Willie Namath. And Joe Willie Namath says before the game, I guarantee victory. I guarantee we're going to win, right? And then they go out and they win. It was one of the greatest upsets of all time. He had no business being that arrogant. I mean, he literally made a claim. He literally was living up to the origin of that term. And they went out and they won. Now, there's another quarterback who's from the same basic geographical area as Joe Namath, and his name is also Joe. His name is Joe Montana. Joe Montana won several Super Bowls. He never guaranteed anything. He would never. Yet they say he was maybe the most confident player of all time. There's a famous story that it's the game is on the line. They're driving down the field, Joe Montana and and his team, San Francisco, and they're in the huddle, and everyone's nervous. And suddenly he points to the crowd and he says to his teammates, "Is that the actor John Candy over there?" And everyone was like, their jaws were on the floor. Like, how is this guy so cool? His nickname was Joe Cool. He was incredibly confident. And he didn't talk. He didn't make these grandiose claims. So it turns out that there is a spectrum, right? There is a gradient between confidence and arrogance. And the question arises, which should you be? I guess to answer that question, we have to answer the question of whether there is any benefit to arrogance, because it seems as if there is. We hear about athletes, politicians, we hear about people who are talking trash and yet manage to do it. And you would think that that would not happen. You would think that the speaking itself and the arrogance itself is an indication that the person is not confident and they can't do it. But it seems that some people do what I did. They talk themselves up. They self-promote. We did a talk several weeks ago on promotion and how necessary promotion is. The definition of promotion is, or to promote is, any action that pushes something forward. And it turns out that talking trash can do that. That being arrogant can push you forward. I mean, maybe it's a fake it till you make it thing. Maybe it's a bravado thing. But there is a utility to it. It can work. So should you do it? I guess to answer that, it really depends on what works for you as a given individual. Quiet confidence, cool, is something that we've seen can work over and over. Years ago, I was watching late night television and there was a commercial, and I don't even remember what it was for. It might have been for a drug rehabilitation or something like that. And they were talking about quiet decisions. They were talking about the most sincere decisions are the quiet ones, the ones you make within your own heart. And if you've made a decision within your own heart, and if you've committed to it, there's no reason to get hypey about it. But again, some people need that initial push, that energy. And that's where I think maybe arrogance has some use. So let's relate this to weight loss. Weight loss is what people come to me for. Some people who come, they've just made a decision that they're going to do it, and that's that. And they follow the steps, and they're perfectly confident. They have complete trust in themselves. Other people, they don't know. The majority of the people who come to me, as they're sitting in front of me, they do not know that they can succeed. It's a discovery process, right? They have to test it out. And, often their lack of confidence is pointed at me or at my program. But that's not really where it lies. Where it really exists is within the individual themselves. They've failed so many times to lose weight or to keep it off. There's no confidence that they can do it. Now, sometimes you will see these people go into a state of self-promotion. Yes, I can do it. I've got this, whatever. Do they really? Maybe not. Maybe they grow into it. Okay. If they're persistent enough. So if you're going to enter into a program, which is the right attitude to have? The right attitude to have, again, is the one that works for you. The question comes up whenever we're talking about confidence or arrogance. We're not only talking about our relationship with ourselves, we're talking about our relationship also with other people, with society. I have people who will do a program who will not tell a single soul that they are doing it. I have other people who will go out and do exactly what I did and start talking about it to their friends. I guess depending on how they speak about it, they're either coming from a place of arrogance or confidence. Because confidence does not mean not sharing at all. But it is more of a self with self kind of a thing when we talk about confidence. Whereas arrogance seems to have a presentation aspect. So if you need to put your ego um, and your appearance and how you look, if you need to put that out there to ensure that you are closing any kind of back doors of escape, then maybe you do it. Maybe you talk. Maybe you say, I've got this. Because there are going to be naysayers. There are always naysayers. Generally, if somebody has a goal and they express it to other people, and this is true more so with weight loss than with most endeavors, generally there's going to be some form of resistance from other people. That could be, going to build a business. That could be, the bigger the thing you say that you want to accomplish, the more resistance you're going to get. And sometimes it's from people who are well-meaning, who are trying to warn you or are trying to test your sincerity, uh, you know, set your expectations. Sometimes it's from people who have very evil intent. They want you to fail, but there will be resistance. Now, this is the funny thing about arrogance. There are some people who are so contrary that resistance will create more motivation within them. You tell them they cannot do it, and God damn it, they're going to do it. And that will be a bigger motivation for them than whatever their reason for starting in the first place was. So if you know that you are that contrary a person, then maybe that's the thing to do, to go out and just talk crap and to create resistance so you could have the joy of pushing through it. Now, there is a concern, a potential concern within the face of resistance if there is the necessary persistence. If that will be there, it's easy to push through a barrier one time. It's a different thing to push through a barrier multiple times or over a period of time, right? And that resistance that you get from people is a type of barrier. Is it just an attitude? Yes. Is it just someone else's intention? Yes. Does that mean that it's not a real thing? No. Energetically, it is real. It is something you can actually feel. It's something that can change your perception of your abilities or your perception of how strong your desire is, depending on where you are coming from. Right? It is a real enough thing. Please be aware of that. It will stop people in their tracks from doing things. Right? Generally, the mechanism is this. Oh, I am going to lose 50 pounds. Yeah, we'll see. You've said that before, right? There's an example of resistance from others. Oh no, I'm going to do it, you insist. Okay, right? This is resistance. Now, the problem occurs when if that taps into a doubt that you have already within yourself. If that is there, then that comment from that person that will strengthen that doubt. And that can be sabotaging. So in that case, you may not want to share if that's the case. But remember this. Remember what confidence implies, and it implies complete self-trust and a lack of doubt. That's the key. It is a state of mind. Both of these things that we're talking about, arrogance, confidence, these are states of mind. Can you get into a state? Can you choose your own state of mind? You can. You can choose not to have any self-doubts, not to give it strength. Doesn't mean things won't float to the surface. Conversations in your head won't float to the surface. The voices that exist in the head are many. They're societal and they're educational and they're parental, right? So it doesn't mean that these tapes won't play. It means not giving them strength. Okay, it's just a voice. It's just a sound, right? Whether or not you give it strength, that is the key, right? Are you increasing the energy of it or decreasing of it? Do you have to grit your teeth and argue with it, or can you just let it float by? Again, different approaches. It's very much like martial arts. There are some martial arts that are about domination, right? You receive resistance, you overcome that resistance with greater strength and energy. Does it work? Absolutely, it can. We've seen it many, 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 many times. Okay. There are other martial arts that uses the strength of the resistance against the person giving it to you. And now we're talking about things like jujitsu, judo, okay? Different forms of martial arts coming from a different philosophical place. That is our task also in the realm of weight loss. What martial art do we need to apply? Do we need to apply the martial art of overcoming resistance by force? Or do we need to apply the martial art that says, no, we're going to use that resistance against the person who is bringing it towards us? These are individual choices. Okay? But this is the confidence-arrogance spectrum. Now, where did I get this idea? Well, it turns out that I did not have a topic for today. So I reached out to a friend of mine. He's a doctor. And I said, listen, you want to join me? You want to discuss something? He said, no. I'm very reluctant. I don't do media. Just no. But this is what you should talk about. You should talk about the confidence-arrogance spectrum. And this is what he said. Okay. I will read to you exactly what he said. He said, discuss the impact of confidence-arrogance spectrum in self-maintenance of mastery and value of listening to or ignoring the spectrum of people who can't handle it. Because if they knew what those they judge think of them, they would be even harsher in their assessment. Okay. Moral of the story is, if you have a question, do not ask an Ivy League trained doctor, because you're liable to get an answer like that that is all but unintelligible. All right. So perhaps I should have had more confidence in my ability to come up with an actual topic today. But getting back to the topic at hand, there is this spectrum. There is no one thing that works. Ignore state of mind at your own peril. Everyone knows it's a thing, I'm not in the right frame of mind right now. Not the right time for me. Yeah, that's real enough. It's real enough. I mean, I've talked about my aunt. Did I just say aunt? My aunt. I've talked about her, how she came to me with that for months. She was not in the right state of mind. She was not in the right place mentally and emotionally until one day she was. I've actually created materials regarding state of mind. This is one thing that came from the pandemic. My experience about people in the pandemic, which I was speaking about a lot 2 years ago, is that people had kind of changed. Less focus, more emotion, less ability to see things through. This was my observation about people post-pandemic. There was a fundamental shift that happened within people. Many of you have told me that you've experienced the same things for yourself and others. I think it's real. I think it's true. I don't think it's just my perception. I've had the conversation with too many people. Has that gone back? I don't know. I don't know. I felt that I had a good finger on the pulse of where people were for a while, and now I have no idea. But it was to the point where I kind of shifted what I was doing and said, I have to address people's mental states. I've always had to do it. I've always had to do it. I've had people say to me, you know what, you should be a shrink. Why am I wasting money with my shrink? Mental state is a prerequisite before losing weight, before having the ability. Why? Well, losing weight requires obviously discipline. It requires decisions, not one decision, multiple decisions every day. And you have to be in a place where you're prepared to make those decisions and follow through with it. So mental state is absolutely important. I created something, basically a handbook or a workbook, to help people with their own mental state. We all have the ability to accomplish what we set out to accomplish. We've done it multiple times. A lady once asked me, how do I get the confidence? I said to her, you have to realize something. You've been winning your whole life. You came into this world winning a race against millions of other sperm. You are a winner. Just to be on this planet, we had to win a race, a contest that makes the Hunger Games seem like child's play. So we know how to do it. It's inherent within us. This ability to survive, this innate drive, we all have it. Now, we forget sometimes, and life experience gives us some other messages. But if we can master our mental state, then we're halfway there. So utilize this knowledge about confidence and arrogance. Be wherever you need to be in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish. So you could go out and talk trash. If that's going to push you through, if that's going to push you over the edge, or you could just make this quiet decision within your own heart. Right? How is it put in the Bible? Still Still silent voice, something like that. Still gentle voice. I forgot. Anyway, coffee's wearing off. Time for me to go. Have a great week, everybody. Behave yourselves. I'll see you next week.